was talking about how they pull energy out of thin air. And like the whole class was just like, what are they talking about? Like this is the stupidest
Yeah.
thing ever. And lo and behold,
Yeah.
here we are.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I'm working in a public library and they have these little isolation booths that are kind of cool to work in so I can talk without bugging people. But I guess every hour it runs out the Wi-Fi connection, so I've switched to using my I'm trying to show you my phone. Look at that, it doesn't appear. Um, I'm using my phone as a router now, so that shouldn't happen. So you guys were able to just stay on the call and it was continued? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, switch to the host.
okay, that's good. That's good to know. I thought you were all going to be kicked off. Sorry, what did I miss there?
We were just talking about an article that Joey found where basically these scientists discovered that you could use an enzyme that grows in the soil to produce energy out of hydrogen. So basically energy from thin air using an enzyme that grows from the soil.
Wow, cool.
That's cool. Have you
Welcome,
guys looked at
Alex.
free energy stuff before? Like basically like what Nikola Tesla was looking into 100 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, Super interesting. You go down conspiracy rabbit holes of how it's been just suppressed for 100 years, basically. But it's just the concept of harvesting, since everything's energy and there's energy all around us, harvesting that energy directly from the air, which is yeah. There's
Yeah, I'm really interested in that stuff. And I've watched some documentaries which were quite convincing that they had cars that could run on water, they had 0 point field energy, free energy type stuff. Even that Tartaria stuff where they look at those old buildings which have these crosses at the top, and you assume right away it's a religious thing, but they actually could be a kind of antenna harvesting frequency out of the field. And I have to say, did the when we did the energy lesson here at Ecoversity, I thought of sort of cringed a little because on the one hand, yeah, it seemed like it's all just about to be made out of date, right? Because they're talking about wind and solar and that, which, we all know are not as eco-friendly as we're told. But when you factor everything in, but I think we're on the verge of finding out some really radical stuff that would be change the whole world if we can generate our own power that way. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble.
down those rabbit holes.
Okay, so what do
Yeah.
we want to accomplish today, guys?
I'd like to review the map that you and Alex kind of put together yesterday. That's
Yeah,
And then we can
well,
apply it to all our sections.
I will
Uh,
give Alex 100% credit for that. I just looked at it and made some comments, but yeah, let's do that. I think that's the starting point.
can
are you
you
able
Yeah, let
someone
me
bring
allow me
that up and share
let,
it?
let me just fiddle here. Hold
to
on.
Here, I'm gonna
either you
send you,
share
I just
or
sent you the
enable
link.
me to share?
Okay,
Uh,
you should be able to share your screen now, Alex.
oh, there we go. Woo, we got it. Sweet.
Yeah, I learned to do that.
All right. So, can we see?
Yep,
Mhm.
I see Thrive All Community, insert
Cool.
team members.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So I started, yeah, I went through the like what's required for a presentation and just put some more slides in here of like what's required. But
Cool.
maps. So uh these three, oop, I'm going the wrong way. No, that's getting bigger. That's not getting bigger. Um
Getting
Look at that.
smaller.
It's smaller as I go past.
We'll
What
see.
is that?
Using.
Um, so these are all the same. Um, so I think we'll probably look at the paper map just, and I'll get there in a second, but just for your own reference, if you look at these are all the same rectangle. So this is my hand sketch for now. I do plan eventually to put it all in Photoshop, but it was just kicking my ass trying to do that first. So I'm just going to do the paper map to start.
Yeah.
And then the square right here is the geographic overlay of this. and then square is the topographic overlay. So just for reference, all three of these are the same. So like here's the river right here, and then here's the river right here, and then here's the river right here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's good.
So with that, here's kind of our initial stab at, and this can be edited live, this grid right here, but of the zones and the map. So I'll kind of just walk through it and then we, people share any thoughts or comments. But down here was in red is kind of our zone 1 for our main developments. So these are our 3 original building sites down here. We also have the animal barn, and animal barn and sheds and sawmills could easily be zone 2, but since they were all kind of right next to Dee Dee's house, there's already that barn there. I just made it zone 1 because it's all kind of just right there. But the right here is where that barn is and where Dee Dee's house is, and then we could put the sawmill and workshop down here too, Guy and I talked about as well. So that way we can convert wood. And okay, make this a little bigger actually. But I have to do a minus to make it bigger. I don't get that at all. And then over here is where we'd have the solar farm and a goat pasture. And what you can do, I've seen this done in Georgia at a farm, is you can have a solar panel array. Well, and just to be clear, whoever's working on energy, I don't want to like steal and say this is what we got to do, but this is
all
what got
good.
check out.
We're all a
There's a
team.
farm there. Okay, cool. And you can have, and we were thinking to have goats, and you can actually have goats or sheep that graze the pasture underneath the solar panels.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. The pasture is also a solar farm.
And the solar
if you-
panels in the photo that you showed me, they were on wheels, so you can move them around. I
Mhm.
thought was
Yeah, I've seen
really
that.
cool.
So
So
that's
are they elevated?
Yeah, they're like elevated to an angle and then they kind of roam around.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Don't sidetrack us too long, but yeah, they just straight up like can
They
just
just walk
hang
around.
out, like
Super smart. Use
and
land.
they graze the grass.
Nice.
And you can see right here, this is kind of that opening, right? These 2 openings right here on the
Mhm.
geomap. That's what we're referring to when I say this green zone down here for the solar farm and the goat pasture. And then I also put don't freeze on me. That's annoying. I also put down there the greenhouse as well. So kind of that big open space is where we'll do this is gonna annoy me. There we go. Okay. So we have the goats, the solar farm, the vertical greenhouse, and then the barn is right over here. So the goats, we would just bring them into the barn at night since there's so many different. Although I don't, goats are probably pretty resilient to predators, but I would still think we bring them in the barn every night, just because there's so many predators around. But
For sure.
So then we come up here. This is the main trail, this gray path, the one that Guy walked in the video. So this is like the pine forest, and then you cross the river, and then we come up here, and then here's what I put for zone 4, and this is where we'd have our wild game processing and our maple tree lounge. So one, we'd have a building so you can hang a moose and process moose and fillet fish and things like that. And then also we talked about having like a little maple tree lounge spot. So we can tap the maple trees for syrup, but also have like a little hut where we can warm up and have a bonfire and just things like that, kind of like a little communal space. So I kind of just plop that right there. And then this is more zone 1 up here because what Guy and I talked about was kind of having like an educational building zone. We could call it the Shire, but this is where we would build and experiment with unique housing alternatives like earth ships or yurts or hempcrete or whatever we want. And that some people would also live there as these educational buildings are being built. So that was kind of another zone 1 up there. And then I left the northern part as zone 5, so just pure wilderness up here. And there is that lake up there, which I know you thought, God, maybe we get water from that lake or not, but for now I just left it in the wilderness and figured between the creek and tapping below and rainwater, we'd use that for water, but that's open for debate if we want to use this lake. Yeah, and then the one thing that is kind of left out for now, which we didn't get to, guys, like for zone 3 for our food forests, for like a fruit and nut food forest, 7-layer food forest type. Would we want to put that somewhere? But everything that's kind of not marked, that's open right now, would probably be like zone 4, just wilderness that we forage, we hunt, we trap. For food, I'm thinking honestly probably about a third of our calories will come from wild game. There's just so many moose, elk, deer, fish, rabbits, ducks. So um, yeah, that's kind of initial stab.
That's awesome. Thank you for putting that together, Alex. That's a great start.
Couple of quick questions, Alex. I just is your hand-drawn scale map, excuse me, did you try to draw it reasonably to scale?
Yes, it is exactly to scale, dimensionally, length and width, and yeah. So yes, it's not like 100% perfect, but it is pretty darn close. So that was the intention, to make it as scale. And when I go in Photoshop, actually, they do actually line up the squares, so it was accurately done to scale in that sense.
Okay, and then sort of maybe a question for you about the map guy. Has Dee Dee settled yet as far as where she wants housing lots to be?
Okay, so those, if you look at those 3 red boxes in the southern part of the map, those are, I think they're more of a violet color in the topographical map that her map maker created. And Alex and I are of the opinion that those line up with the lots that she's selling already. I sent Dee Dee an email 2 days ago, and I said we'd really like to talk to that guy and just ask him further details about what he created. But this also fits with my memory walking through the property, that there was this sort of more open area without many trees, like the more clearing type areas correspond with those 3 shapes. Yeah, there you go. And then yeah, and so if you go back to the map,
So yeah, these here are these red ones right here.
yeah, it's funny, it looks really different when you turn it completely vertical, doesn't it? I've always thought of that creek flowing east to west because it always looks that way, but then when you put the map vertical, I realize, oh yeah, it goes more, it flows more southeast to northwest.
Well, so I have my compass here, so this is north, so it is still.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, wasn't
Yeah,
even thinking of
this
that.
is, yep.
So my question is, as I'm looking at the map, have we, if Dee Dee was talking about 100 half-acre or 1-acre lots, have we allocated enough space for those lots and people being able to get to their individual abodes?
You know what? We have not, and I'm going to have to somehow calculate that. What we'll have to do, if you look at the grid pattern on that piece of paper on the map, it'd be interesting to find out like
Yeah,
how big would an acre be?
I can
And
figure that out.
yeah,
I can do that math
because there'd
actually.
have to, if there's 200 of them in that rectangle, let's just pretend for now that there's 200, then that would give us an indication. I have a feeling she's going to have a hard time fitting them in the way she thinks she is.
At
And
least to the quantity she's talking about.
yeah,
I agree.
now that said, a person could own a half acre and it could just mostly be trees, and they might just be clearing out a footprint for their tiny home or something. So it's not like they have to put a fence around that and clear it all and do something with it. Whether it's all going to work out like with, I think we should kind of set aside that drawing that she's done. I guess we should take it into account, but we're not beholden to her map that she's using to sell lots. I think I don't know how accurate that is. But yeah, as the dwelling person, I will commit to look into that further. But if you guys figure anything out, that will be helpful too, because that affects all of us in a big way.
If I just did some quick math, it's just like a notepad I can write on. Let's do it in one note. Let's do a new page here. Okay, so this square right here, or my grid paper had 42 squares across, and then it had 18 squares. I don't know, I'll just call it length and width. And this does mimic the same relative proportion of length and width of the 200 acres we're on.
Right.
So if you multiply that together, then we have a total of 756 squares on this grid paper. And if
Right.
the lot is 200 acres divided by 756, then each square is 0.26 acres.
Oh, isn't that? Oh, so each square is a quarter acre. So two
Quarter acre.
together is a half acre.
Yeah, so that's the next step, Joey. So to right now it's not perfect, but that's we can we can even look at that right now, even really. Yeah.
So then if to my thinking, the next step would be that we actually sort of develop neighborhoods with roads, for lack of a better word, going into those neighborhoods and accessing I don't know what 30, 50 building sites. What's anybody think as far as a reasonable number for us to work with?
I think what I'm going to do is make my own. I'll print off a copy of that, and I'm going to take I'll literally take some scissors and I'll cut 2 squares of graph paper that represent the shape of, just assuming it's a rectangular lot, which it doesn't have to be, but let's say.
Right. Yep.
And then I can move those around and see how it plays out. And I guess it's not realistic that they're all going to line up on that one made road. So we'll have to have side paths. Something we'll have to think about is, does everybody drive their car onto their lot and park it on a parking pad? Or do the cars for each neighborhood, say, go to a parking lot? So maybe at the roadside, there'd be space for 8 cars to park, and then you walk into your property. Something like that. I have to think about that. Because I think I don't think it's going to be realistic, especially on that landscape that's very uneven, to have everyone driving into a driveway like it's a suburban neighborhood. I think
Right.
and maybe not everyone's going to have a car, but I think we have to assume they have something.
And maybe there's like a golf cart at the front, even if, so someone can just shuttle people back and forth if they wanted to.
Yeah, automobiles
like
are a major factor in this that we'll have to
I didn't
think
think of
about.
that actually. Yeah.
Can you
But-
go past the river? Like the river's, can you walk over the river? Or
Yeah,
is it too?
So let me explain that. So where you see the gray trail crossing the Blue Creek, I think we should call it a creek because it's not really a river. There's a very small footbridge there, and you would
Okay.
not be able to drive a car over that. You could drive a snowmobile over it. And I think we will need to put in a much wider bridge that could withstand the weight of a car or even a truck.
Yeah.
And that's not a crazy expense for if it's shared between all the owners, but definitely we have to put in a more solid bridge. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to have handrails or anything, but just one of those wide kind of concrete or metal kind of structures that a truck could go over. Good question. And I think we will have to widen the road a fair ways up, at least to what we're calling the Shire in the north end. I'll just quickly fill you in as to what my concept was there. I like to call it the Smurf Village, or the Shire from Lord of the Rings, you know, the Hobbit village. What I'm imagining there is that the first couple of phases of the development will be to people who have the money to buy the lot and build their own place or have something built for them or delivered. But I thought the community is going to need, in my opinion, people who are there to help with the work, and they could earn their way into ownership of a lot through their sweat equity. So let's say maybe as I forget, I think it was Alex was showing me that there's a guy in Montana
Hermes.
actually doing this. So we can
Yeah.
refer to that. But what I'm imagining in the Shire is we have a large geodesic dome that would be kind of a space for yoga classes and gatherings and things. And then around that dome, we would allow, or we would have volunteers build these tiny homes, and then they could live in them temporarily, and then eventually they could get their own lots and build their own homes. And then eventually there might be, say, a dozen tiny little homes and structures, dwellings around in a circle, and those could be used for guests. They could be used if we do trainings of different kinds or offerings, and they could be like an Airbnb type model that people come and stay in those. I don't know, lots of possibilities. I just don't like and we're also going to have a dining hall and community center, and it would be good to have some people staffing that and cooking food for the community and stuff. And that creates an opportunity for people who don't have a lot of money to get into the community and help out. And goodness knows, people building their own cabins, they're going to need a second or third set of hands, right? So that was my idea. I don't know if Dee Dee will go for that, but that's what I would do.
I like that idea. I was watching a video this morning, and it was about this woman talking about her experiences with eco villages, and she was basically saying that what she found common was that there were usually older people that were more affluent, but they didn't want to do the work. Like they like the idea of living in these eco villages, and they like the aesthetic, and they like the community and the whole vibe. But when it came to like putting their hands in the soil, they were just not about that.
Right.
So she was like, basically she was saying like, don't take this as discouragement, but it's a reality where the people that can afford to live there usually don't have the energy to actually participate in the way that is ideal. And so I was thinking like, well, it seems like there's a very clear opportunity for energy exchange if you have older people that have more money and less energy that want to live in an eco village, and then you have younger people with a lot of energy but no money that also want to live in an eco village. They could basically fill in the gaps for each other and kind of work symbiotically, right?
Yeah. I like that
I'm
idea a lot. Yeah, that's really makes sense.
I'm thinking Native American culture. The elders are the wisdom keepers. They're not out doing all the dirty work anymore. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So basically, we're going to have a globalist elite and a slave class. Is that what
I was gonna say, it touches on one of the sessions we had in class about the subject of colonization, of people just hiring the locals to be their gardeners and their housekeepers, and not necessarily a full integration and development of community among all of the, I don't want to use the word classes, but I'm at a loss for a better word right now.
I heard somebody say that there's with these intentional communities, one of the problems is there's a bit of a class distinction between the owners and the renters. So, but I think within this Ubuntu spirit, you know, that can be gone past if you look at it as the people who have some capital helping to create the means for people to you know, through their work to earn their way. And then ultimately, everybody, whether they bought their way in because they had the cash at the start or they worked their way up, everyone will end up owning a property, and then there'll be a kind of more of an equalization. But it won't be equal at the start in that sense, that's true. But I think maybe we would have a charter or something of, I don't know the answer, but we should think about some ideas to counterbalance that. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be.
Ecoversity
Just-
education for everybody off the jump.
That would be a good question for Penny when she comes on here, if she does.
Yeah, I was hoping Stephen would share more when I asked the question. He just kind of said like it's an HOA model, but I was hoping he'd get more into these types of details.
Yeah, because an HOA does nothing but it's a set of rules and a board of directors to more or less enforce those rules, and
Yeah, he didn't really talk about the community piece at all. So
and rules kind of goes against the nature of wanting to have a community where we don't want the Canadian government interfering in our business. So there seems like a fine line to walk there.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the spirit of everyone, in the true energy exchange, right? All money's energy. So like there, I think it's a value add if there's someone in the community who has a great remote job where they can make money working online, and then that money can circulate within the economy. Their time is probably more spent working that job, whereas someone who doesn't have a job is better spent harvesting fruit. And that can be, I think that can be completely fair and voluntary. And some people would rather be a beekeeper than work an online job. Some people would rather work an online job. So I
Yeah.
definitely think there's a way you can still make it totally fair in terms of just contribution.
Right.
Yeah, and you can kind of keep track, like within the community, of how many people you have that are fulfilling the roles that we need. So you kind of start with like an idea of these are the general roles that we need filled, and if we have 1,000 people that want to be beekeepers and we have nobody that's bringing in money into the economy in other ways, then it's like, okay, sorry, we can't accept any more beekeepers. Like kind of,
Totally.
yeah.
I just want to touch on a few details. We'll be kicked off and have to sign back in 6 minutes. When we come back, I want to start getting into more of a conversation about how each person's piece gets overlaid on this. And maybe we'll talk further with you, Angela, about some of the ideas you had about, I think, some software things that we can use toward building the final product of the slide presentation, and which will be a film.
And then one thing too, I just think if we could just, we talked about this before, but just confirm exactly how many lots and how many people we should plan for, because I think we got to pick a number so everyone can do their math.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Can you put that map back on for a sec? I just, yeah. So what else was I going to say? I would consider, Alex, treating the sawmill and the greenhouse as zone 2. Just thinking, and where I envision the sawmill is at the bottom right of the rectangle. And then the vertical farm, which is an indoor complex, can be where you have it there, but we could also have some standard greenhouses there as well, just where the light comes in, that could grow. They might even be able to grow food year round, but certainly in the warm months. So there was that. We spoke about the Shire. Oh yeah. I was thinking, okay, where you have that animal processing thing, the wild game processing, I think that should be the wild game processing. I was thinking of the sugar shack, as I would call it, that has like a wood burning fireplace in it, and maybe a wood burning sauna, maybe even a wood burning hot tub. I was thinking that would be up in that orange area up there, sort of closer to the top of the picture. The thought being people will go for walks and they'll go for snowshoes and cross-country skiing. And by the time they get up to the northern part of the property. They might even go further because it's all crown land up there. And then they'll want to have a place to sit and warm up and relax. And the model I have in my mind for that is that's exactly how it is at Algonquin Park, which is at the exact same latitude as these lands. You know, you go to Algonquin Park in the winter, and what is normally trails during the summer becomes cross-country ski and trails in the winter. And they have different loops you can do, depending on how much of a fitness thing you want to do. And at certain points, there'll be a little wooden cabin with a wood burning fireplace in it to warm up. And they might even have like hot apple cider in there and stuff. So it's pretty cool. So that was kind of what I was thinking. So I would
I
treat
wrote
those
down
two
Sugar Shack
different
move.
facilities.
Yeah,
Two
I wrote down
different.
Sugar Shack, move up here. Sawmill move to bottom right, and then Sawmill and Greenhouse move to zone 2.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. Okay, I think I'm strongly on the same page as that. I'm guessing what we'll try and do is let's figure out if we could get up to 100 homes in the southern part of the property, south of the creek. If it's not realistic, then we'll find that out pretty quickly and we'll move some of them north of the creek.
200 squares.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that looks like.
Wait, so 100 lot, and is 0.5 acres the set goal?
You can buy a half acre or a full acre. Dee Dee is saying most people are buying half acres.
Okay, maybe we'll
Don't
do
you think some
25%.
people might want more space than others? Like we might want like a little city and then the suburb where there's some people that are closer and other people that aren't.
Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure if I understood you there.
Well, if you do all of those little squares down below the river, it's going to be pretty tight, even if we
Mhm.
can fit it. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of that you're just close to people. And I would imagine there's going to be a group of people that would like more land or more space.
Oh,
And so I can imagine
see.
there's maybe a fourth that want to be across the river and make that be kind of a, I don't know, advantage of some sort. Where
Yeah,
there's more land.
that's a good point. Maybe north of the creek, we could have that it's more of a free form where the lots are separated by more space between them.
Yeah, because
Where
people
the
are trying to get out of the city and do their own thing.
Yeah, and down in the south part, it'd be a little bit more like a community where people, you know, you have neighbors, kind of like I don't want to say trailer park, but you get what I mean.
Cul-de-sacs, maybe.
Yeah, with a little community parking lot. Do we think this is reasonable to say 25 lots at a quarter acre and 75 lots at 0.5 acre, since most people are gearing towards 0.5?
I don't
Guys,
think
it's
I don't think she's selling quarter acres.
Oh, I thought you said she was. It's only okay. It's only 0.5.
0.5 or a full acre.
Oh, or full. Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
maybe in the Hobbit Village, we could have quarter acres, something like that. Maybe that'd be just its own thing.